Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. As you can see from this fancy new splash screen and from the version number in the bottom left hand corner, we have made the switch to Minecraft 1.14. It was released on Tuesday as expected, and I have had a little bit of time in this. It actually updated during a live stream I was doing, so I had a little bit of time to get into the world. Now, before we start, I do want to open up the world list here. And when you do this, if you are upgrading from 1.13, you will know that there is a kind of confirmation screen to make sure that you know that you're opening the world in a new version. If you're at all concerned about the world and you haven't done so already, make sure you back up the world. Make sure you keep a backup of your world just in case anything goes wrong in the new update. Fingers crossed, so far for me, I haven't noticed anything too bad in terms of the world getting corrupted or anything like that, but you might want to take a backup of your world just in case. So without further ado, let's take our first steps into Minecraft 1.14, the Village and Pillage update. So the first thing you will notice is that some stuff looks ever so slightly different. There are subtle changes to basically all of the textures, and that was covered a little bit in the video about snapshots that I did a while ago, and before that in the video about texture packs, but these are now the official default textures of Minecraft. And there's even a couple of interesting little changes to the way player movement works, but we'll cover that in a little while. For now, I just want to take a look around the world because there are some really interesting texture changes around here. The castle is still looking great, but you'll notice the stone brick pops a little bit more. The strata of the stone, the little kind of, I guess, streaks in it are a little bit more pronounced here and there, but overall, it's still the same structure we built. Obviously, it hasn't made any structural changes to it, but there are some things that are just subtly different, like the texture of these droppers, the outline is a little bit less dark, that kind of thing. It's so interesting seeing all of this stuff actually realized in a full update now, and I imagine we'll probably get a good look at those as we go around the world. There are a bunch of things I want to cover in this video, and I won't be covering too much outside of the area of Founder's Forge today. So obviously we want to go exploring, I want to go looking for the new features, we want to go looking for pillager outposts and bamboo forests and a new type of village. But right now, I'm going to stick around in the center of town for at least a couple of episodes, and here is why. Sometimes when a new update comes around, there can be a few technical hitches, there can be bugs, there can be things that still need to get ironed out about the new version, and 1.14, the Village and Pillage update, is no exception to this. On Java Edition right now, there are issues with the world rendering in. It takes a little while to load some of these chunks occasionally, and yeah, as you can see right now, the terrain over here is looking a little bit glitchy. The terrain is not gone, believe me, it's not gone. If I stand still on here for a little while and allow the world to load in, it renders in just fine. And it's still loading everything around you because you can still collide with some of these blocks and so forth. It's just that you can't see them. And right now, flying around like that is basically the only way that I've really noticed this happening. If I run around on foot, the chunks load far enough ahead of me that I don't have to worry too much about it. But if I'm flying around, I'm actually moving quite fast. And yeah, rendering issues like this happen quite frequently. Now, I'm pretty sure I've heard that along with this version of Minecraft, they have included a brand new rendering engine that actually renders the game in a different way. The code is completely different to how it was before. And as such, that might be a byproduct of this new system, and I feel like that might be something that can be optimized in future updates. So right now, I'm kind of thinking we should probably steer clear of flying too far and loading a bunch of new stuff in just until that stuff gets ironed out. Maybe we can do a little bit of exploring, but you won't be seeing too much of the travel because as far as video footage goes, I'm not really keen on having these giant gaps in the terrain for the videos that I want to produce for you guys. It's kind of not the ideal situation. So until an update is released that fixes that, or until maybe a version of Optifine gets released for Minecraft 1.14, I will probably steer clear of doing a huge amount of traveling in the world. That said, there is a lot of stuff to be looked at around Founder's Forge and my current base, because there are absolutely tons of changes that have come around, which are definitely worth covering, aside from the fact that the wheat field is now looking like a beautiful golden rolling pasture, and the creepers apparently are still here. Minecraft 1.14 is the Village and Pillage update, and that means there have been significant changes to villagers. These guys are looking a little bit different now, and these are two of the villagers that I have traded with in the past. Oh, a zombie is converting to a drowned right outside my door. Apparently that was a very close by noise. Anyway, these two have brand new outfits that are befitting of their professions. This guy on the right here, of course, is a librarian, and he's the guy we had an impaling trade with and a few other trades. We have this brand new villager trading interface to look at, and that actually lists all of the trades this villager is willing to make. Not only that, but if you step near a villager with something that they want to trade with you, they're actually going to hold out their item that they want to trade with you in their hands, and it's pretty cool to watch them do that. This guy on the left over here is a cleric, and he's got some lovely earrings, and they've got this new wonderful like head bobble animation. When they want to trade with you, they'll actually kind of like peruse the stuff that you're holding out for them. But the different outfits are brand new, and some of these outfits actually occur differently in different biomes. So a village that spawned in a plains is going to have different outfits to a village that spawned in, say, a taiga or a snowy biome, where you actually have access to snowy villages in the game now, which is really exciting. There are also 2 biomes in which villages cannot spawn. They don't naturally generate, but if you spawn villagers there in a villager breeder, you will actually get outfits that are unique to those biomes, and that is swamp villages and jungle villages. There are none of those generating naturally in the game, but it encourages the player to make them and get those new outfits. So I'm sure at some point we're going to be starting a village over in the swamp and getting some swamp villagers on the go. But I'm sure a lot of you have worried about what's happened to Mendelssohn. And Mendelssohn is his old self. He's actually doing really, really well. You'll notice that he is still a librarian, as you can tell from the book on his head. He has kept all of his trades, and we still have that wonderful 10 emerald mending trade. So all of our preparation, while it was probably a sensible thing to do, was actually kind of unnecessary. Or if it wasn't unnecessary, then it was at least, it was cautious, but it was, something we didn't need to worry too much about. Mendelssohn's trades are completely unaffected, down to the amount of emeralds he wants for bookshelves and the amount of the amount of glass he'll trade me for a single emerald, that kind of thing. It is possible that some of this stuff might differ in future, though, because there is a chance, if a village is present, for a villager to adjust their prices based on an economy. So the more increase in reputation you have with the nearby village, the more the traders will lower their prices. So you actually end up getting a discount if you are a cool enough guy in the villagers' books. And speaking of books, by the way, you might notice this. This right here is a brand new block for Minecraft 1.14, and we're probably going to spend the rest of this episode looking at these once I've gone over a couple of other things about villagers. This right here is a Lectern, and I placed this down basically as soon as I updated the world to 1.14 because I was worried about villagers keeping their trades. One of the new mechanics in the Village and Pillage update allows villagers to actually switch trades or potentially become unemployed depending on whether or not one of their preferred workstations is around. In this case, Mendelssohn right here has a lectern next to him because that is the preferred workstation for the librarian profession. The workstations will actually determine what profession a villager has, and I really wanted to make sure Mendelssohn stayed as a librarian so we had access to that valuable trade. So I figured we may as well put a lectern down right away. And I can show you how a lectern is made once I've done a little bit more trading with Mendelssohn and got myself a bookshelf, or unless I've got enough wood in here. You know what? I might actually have enough wood if I break down this into some planks. Fantastic. Let's make ourselves a bookshelf, and then let's get some slabs as well. There we go. We've got some birch slabs. Fantastic. Let's put together a bookshelf really quick. There we go. And then once that bookshelf is in the inventory, you'll see the lectern recipe pop up. It is simply 4 slabs and a bookshelf arranged in a kind of T-pose like so. And if we get a lectern out of that, we can pop it down. And it looks like this to begin with. It's got the bookshelf texture in there, and it's got a lectern kind of faceplate there. And all you need to do is get a written book like the one I have over here. Let me take this one out of the lectern, a book and quill, and you can write basically anything you want in it, or you can leave it blank, and then you can place it here on the lectern where it can be read. You can open this up, you can leaf through the pages, and you don't have to pick up the book and leave it in your inventory, which is perfect for multiplayer servers because lots of players can come over to a lectern, read whatever happens to be in here, and you don't have to make tons of copies of a book. You could put a shop catalog in here, for example. The lectern even has redstone functionality, as we've covered in a previous episode. I think the episode about the snapshots, I did go into lecterns in a little bit more detail, but it's very exciting to have them in the game now, and hopefully that should allow us to create a few more librarians. But as for the other villagers, including the villagers over in my trading hall, we don't have workstations around them quite yet, and this raises a bit of a concern because we don't want those villagers to lose their trades and become unemployed villagers for now. We want to be able to keep the trades we've got and continue trading with them. So I've actually taken a quick look at this. I took a look at them on the live stream when I first logged in 1.14 just to make sure that I could confirm that they'd kept some of their professions. And for the majority of them, they have. I've actually done a bit of a game of, like, Guess Who, if you guys have ever played that board game. We've actually flipped down some of these villagers and flipped up some of the other villagers' trapdoors. And the reason for that is to indicate which villagers have professions and which ones don't. You will notice a bit of a pattern here in that if a villager has an item frame up here, because I've traded with them, I've flipped this up because I want to protect that villager because they have kept their profession. And I don't know if this is going to be the case across the board. I don't know if it's on some kind of timer or anything like that, but without any kind of workstation around this cleric, he has kept his job as a cleric because I've done some trading with him before, and he has kept all of his original trades through the update into 1.14. And the same is true of pretty much every other villager in this row, except for our friend here, who seems to be a Fletcher. I took a note of his string trade, but I don't think I ever traded with this guy before the 1.14 update came around, and as such, he has forgotten his profession. He hasn't managed to make any development in his profession. They actually have, like, classes that they work through now. They can be a novice of a particular profession, or they can become a master of that profession if you've unlocked all their trades. I don't know why some villagers have that and others don't, but for now, this Fletcher over here, or he may have been whatever, I think a fisherman is the other profession that it requires string as its first trade. This guy, unfortunately, does not have any trades anymore because he's lost his profession, because we didn't trade with him in the first place. The farmer right next to him, we've done a fair amount of trading with. We've unlocked some, if not all, of his trades, and he is a journeyman farmer, and he's still got that stuff available to us. Likewise, the armorer in here. I love all the costumes, by the way. These costumes are all fantastic. But those have kept their trades, and it's pretty much the same for any of the villagers that I have shut up in here. Even this guy here, the toolsmith, who doesn't really look like he's wearing much of an outfit, that collar around there, that kind of, I think it's just like meant to be welding goggles or some kind of like tool-making goggles around his neck. He's still got all of the trades he had before, including the same pickaxe he had before. So, for the most part, we can be guaranteed that any of the villagers that I have kept around from before the update have their trades if I've traded with them already. In the case of our unfortunate friend the Fletcher here, we probably need to give him some kind of new vocation, and that's why I want to know, if I place a Lectern in front of him right now, is he going to become a librarian? This is an interesting test, and I don't know if the switch is going to be immediate. I don't know if it requires other things yet, because villagers also require beds in order to, have a normal village life. The librarian over here may already be attracted to this Lectern as his own workstation because he's an existing librarian in this area. The way the villager workstations typically work, although it may be just a directional thing, I might want to turn this around and try and place it like that. Let's see if that makes any difference to him now. It's facing towards him. I don't think you need to place a book on this either, so nope, that's just glitching through the trapdoor in a weird-looking way. I think this librarian has probably keyed into the fact that this is his Lectern over here because he is the nearest librarian to it. As far as I can tell, the villagers will change their professions depending on the number of workstations that are currently available and depending on the existing occupations of other villagers in the area. So if this guy was the only unemployed villager and everybody else already had a workstation, we placed down this Lectern in front of him, he would probably convert into a librarian. But for right now, it seems like that isn't the case. So I'm going to shut this up again. I'm actually going to try and get that redstone lamp back. There we go. Just so we can make sure that he stays well lit, because, like I said before, we need to worry about the pillager problem. But for now, all of our other villagers seem to have kept their professions and trades. I don't know if this is going to change at any point. I don't know exactly how long we can expect this to last, if it will last at all, or if it will just, they'll eventually revert if they don't have any kind of profession blocks around them, any kind of workstations. But I think in the case of these guys, it's probably a good idea if we end up breaking them out of this whole setup. In fact, all of these villages are probably going to be broken out of this setup, and we're going to try and do something new with them. But that will, of course, be quite a long ongoing project for this update. So maybe we will get into making our own village at some point in future. For now, I think we're just going to pass over it for today, and we'll take up that particular challenge a little bit later. For right now, I want to take a look at some of the new blocks, and I've already crafted one of them and got it right here in my inventory. This is a stone cutter, and this is a delightful addition that was actually part of Minecraft Pocket Edition once upon a time. This used to be one of the only ways that you could cut up stone into stuff like stone bricks or slabs or anything like that, and so we're going to be able to use the stone cutter to make a variety of blocks. Let's take some stone and stone bricks here as an example. If I put the stone in here like so, it gives us a whole variety of options for what we can do with this. We can cut it into all of the different variants of stone and stone bricks without having to worry too much about the extra resources involved or converting it through the process of like making it into stone bricks and then making it into stone brick stairs. You'll notice we also have a stone brick wall option here. Chiseled stone is an option. We can even make real stone slabs and stairs now. So this is going to convert into 2 stone slabs. And let me tell you, my friends, this is a very surreal experience for me. I did not expect to ever see natural stone slabs in Minecraft, and here we are looking at them. You might wonder what that's done with the smooth stone recipe, and that's something else to cover. If I can grab a furnace, which I think I have a couple of here in the cobblestone chest, let's pop down a couple of these and let's smelt some stone. We can actually put stone into a furnace as an ingredient, smelt it using a couple of the sticks I've got in my inventory, and this is now what will give you smooth stone. And it doesn't just give you a smooth stone slab like we're used to, it gives you a full smooth stone block. Previously, these were only available as part of the creative inventory, but now we have a double high stone slab type of block, and that can be put in the stone cutter and turned into 2 smooth stone slabs. So there is actually a crafting process for these. Of course, if you end up getting 3 of them and putting them in a crafting table like in a row, you can absolutely still make stone slabs that way. Obviously, those 2 would also be smooth stone. Not a great example, but you will find stuff like granite can now be manipulated the same way, and we have granite slabs, stairs, and polished granite slabs and stairs, as well as granite walls, which is just mind-blowing still. It's really cool to have this, and there's also a 1-to-1 exchange rate with this stuff, so you can get 3 granite walls out of 3 granite blocks without having to worry about like crafting them 6 at a time, which can be perfect for those odds and ends where you just need 1 of something. You don't want to craft an additional 5 and have them hanging around in your inventory. Introducing the stone cutter. The stone cutter is also the workstation of a stonemason villager, which is a new profession coming into the game for Minecraft 1.14 Village and Pillage. And that's going to be a very useful set of trades to have, because the stonemason will actually trade you things like quartz pillars and brick blocks, and that's going to be very cool because otherwise you can't always have access to that stuff renewably in Minecraft. So now we have the option of renewing a few things. They won't trade you the actual quartz material, but it might actually be worth finding a stonemason who can trade you some quartz, and then you can convert that using the stone cutter into the other types of quartz. I think the stone cutter works on quartz. Anyway, let me just really quickly check that. Yes, there we go. So you can convert this to a pillar and back again. Oh, maybe not back again. So you can cut regular quartz into a pillar, but you can't cut a pillar back into regular quartz. That makes logical sense now I think about it. Anyway, despite this having a slightly intimidating looking circular saw on it, it doesn't do any damage to the player or anything like that. So I think you can be safe in knowing that you can place stone cutters basically anywhere you want in your world. And I'm going to put some granite walls up in this chest for the first time. How strange. Anyway, having spent a bit of time on the stone cutter, I think it is worth taking a look at basically all of the other workstation blocks, all of these other new crafting blocks and other blocks that have been added in during the update. So let's go into this tab here, which actually contains a lot of the kind of functional blocks, and let's craft ourselves a barrel using 6 oak planks and 2 slabs. I'm pretty sure it can be slabs of any material. Let me just quickly check that with the birch. Yes, okay, and what you get is a spruce-looking barrel. It actually looks most similar to the texture of spruce wood, and barrels can be a storage block. They are unique compared to chests in that they do not need an additional space above them or a transparent block above them to open. A barrel can be a regular chest size storage space in a 1-block area without any need for the environment around it to be a particular way. Barrels also look amazing. I'm going to be using these a great deal in castles and in other builds, and barrels are the preferred workstation of the fisherman villager. So if you want a fisherman villager and you're looking at a bunch of unemployed villagers, place a barrel nearby and see how they react. Barrels also have a rotational aspect to them, so you can actually place them depending on which direction you're facing and the angle you're looking at the block where you place it. So, for example, if you place it a little bit further away from you, if you look towards the far edge of the block like that, it's going to be placed facing towards you, whereas if you want to place it upright, look towards the closer edge of the block and you'll place it upright like so. It's really neat, and I like the fact that they can be placed at multiple angles. It's going to make them very usable in a variety of settings. I'm actually going to start laying out these workstations over here so we can get a good look at each of them, because it's kind of nice to have them all laid out in a row, and also I'm probably going to end up running out of space in my inventory at this rate. So let's move on and head back into the crafting interface to look at our next workstation. I actually don't quite know all the crafting recipes of this yet. I have not got them memorized, so the recipe book here is going to be the key to understanding what we need for each of them. Let's take a look at the smoker. Looks like that needs some actual wood blocks, so that's wood on all of the sides. Oh no, actually it does still just take logs. Okay, great. Those around a furnace. Right, well I've got a couple of furnaces in my inventory, so that works. I was a little bit worried then that those would only accept the regular, like the full six-sided texture wood logs, but nope. Apparently we just need 4 of those around a furnace like so. The smoker, here it is. And the smoker is, I believe, the preferred workstation of a butcher villager, and this can be used like a furnace, but it only smelts food, and it does it twice as fast. So you can put in the regular type of fuel in here, whatever type of fuel you want. I'm pretty sure it will be compatible with most of them. Let's put some coal in here to give it a try. There we go. We can put coal in there, and then when it cooks food, which I don't know if I have any in here actually, looks like I've got 2 raw chicken in here, so we can give the raw chicken a try. There we go. That is way faster than the furnace. That is, I believe, twice as fast as a furnace will cook stuff. So smokers could be your preferred way of cooking things if you want to set up a kitchen. And look at that animated texture as well. That is absolutely gorgeous. I think that's really cool looking. But then if we try to smelt some iron ore in the smoker, you'll find that it cannot be used for that. You cannot put iron ore into this and still have it cook. You can, I guess, put it into the slot there for now. It can't shift click into there. You can place it there, but that's probably something that they will patch eventually. And it doesn't do anything inside the GUI of a smoker itself, because iron ore and gold ore now have their own smelting block. It is called a blast furnace, and I'm going to look for the recipe for that one now because it follows on from the smoker pretty well. This one is much more expensive. This one requires some smooth stone, for which I guess we will have to cook some of that in a furnace, and 5 iron ingots around a furnace. So looks like we're making some smooth stone then. 5 iron ingots out of our iron supply in there. Let's pop over here and see if we can now craft the blast furnace. Where did it get to? There we go. 5 iron ingots around the top, a furnace in the middle, and 3 smooth stone blocks across the bottom. You get yourself a blast furnace, and this is basically the ore equivalent of a smoker. It will smelt ore blocks twice as fast as a regular furnace. Let's grab some coal from in here and we can give this thing a go. This is going to work wonderfully in smelting arrays that currently use a lot of furnaces to smelt this stuff particularly fast. I think it's going to be a great addition to those if you plan on digging up a lot of your ores. However, I don't think either the blast furnace or the smoker can process things like glass or nether brick or stuff like that. Let's do a quick test by dumping some sand in here, or trying to at least, and let's see if that gets smelted. Nope, it's not doing anything. I've placed it in the slot just like the smoker. It doesn't seem to do anything at all. And this still consumes the same amount of fuel for each of these smelting operations. It actually cools down a lot faster than a furnace because I guess it's still smelting 8 items per fuel block. It's not more fuel efficient, it is just more time efficient. And despite it having a fantastic looking texture, the fact that it doesn't smelt anything other than iron and gold, both of which you can farm through other means, although I know iron farms have changed in this update, I don't really see myself using the blast furnace all that much unless it is updated to smelt stuff like sand or nether brick out of netherrack, which I'm fairly certain, even though it's got an ingot pattern to it, is not something you can smelt. Yeah, there you go. It can't be smelted in a blast furnace at all. So I don't really see myself making a great deal of use of the blast furnace unless I want to smelt all of this iron ore I've got in here, which, I don't know, I've got a decent supply of iron right now. We'll see how quickly that runs out. But as an aesthetic block, though, really nice. Very, very cool. I like the aesthetic of it. It kind of reminds me of a pig if I look at it from this angle. Aside from that, of course, the blast furnace is, I believe, the preferred workstation of the armorer villager. So you're going to want to have a few of these around if you want your villagers to produce armor for you. Next up on the crafting station roulette, we have a grindstone. Let's take a look at this one. This needs a stone slab, a regular stone slab, 2 sticks, and 2 planks. I think we can handle that. Perfect. There it is. These things are really quite special. These can repair tools. Now, this has taken over the repair functionality that it had when you combined 2 tools in your inventory. It used to be the case that you could combine 2 tools that had lost a little bit of durability in your crafting interface like so. This is no longer the case. You have to use a grindstone to do it, and by combining those 2 in there, we would get a fully repaired set of shears if either of those had lost durability. I think it still kind of counts the durabilities and then adds a little bit. I don't think it will completely repair something for you if you combine 2 tools in there, but it's worth a go. It will also, I'm not actually going to do this because a lot of the tools in here have quite valuable enchantments on them, but it will also disenchant some gear. Let me actually run up here and grab some of the enchanted gear that I got from the end cities, like this one, Protection 2, Thorns 1. Let's see if we can take the enchantments off of this. Okay, it looks like we can disenchant this, and you'll notice when I take it out of here, we get a little bit of experience from that. So it is possible to use these as a sort of, you know, low-end experience farm by disenchanting enchanted gear that you've gotten from mob grinders, from loot chests, that kind of thing. Note that the amount of experience you get from that is fairly minimal compared to the amount it takes to enchant a new item, so you might not want to just expect to switch it over from being an enchanted item to just enchanting it in a table. It will also not remove curses, so if you have something that's enchanted with cursor binding or cursor vanishing, it won't remove those, unfortunately. It's not that easy. Although I did just notice that the recipe book popped up with something quite interesting here. If you put iron armor or gold armor into a blast furnace, it will smelt it down into nuggets. And it will do that quite quickly. So if you're getting a lot of armor from a mob grinder and you want to convert it into iron nuggets that way, for an iron farm, or maybe if you wanted to use iron nuggets to make the new lanterns, that could be a very good use of blast furnaces beyond just smelting ore blocks. So maybe I have to think outside the box with the blast furnace. Maybe I'm not giving it enough credit, and it's actually going to be a little bit more useful than that. Anyway, returning to the grindstone, the grindstone is the preferred workstation of the weaponsmith, and it can actually be attached to the side of a block or to the top of a block if I look at it like so. Yeah, so it can actually be hung from somewhere, and I think in terms of its aesthetic possibilities, you could use this as a wheel if you want your wheel to be kind of Fred Flintstone trike kind of inspired stuff. I think it has a lot of versatile uses. I think you're going to be finding a lot of people using this for really interesting capabilities, really interesting builds, and maybe even like vehicles and stuff like that. The smithing table has popped up in my recipe book here as something I already have the ingredients for. That is just basically a crafting table with 2 iron ingots on top as the crafting recipe. That is one of the more unique crafting recipes I've seen. You don't normally see stuff made like this, which is quite interesting. Now, the thing about the smithing table, of course, this is the preferred workstation of the toolsmith, but right now it does not have any functionality. This thing actually came into this update with no use other than as a workstation or as an aesthetic block. Mojang have said they are planning on adding some sort of functionality to this and the Fletching Table, which is the preferred workstation of the Fletcher villager, in the next update. And that has got people thinking that maybe the next update, 1.15 for Java, is going to be focused on combat and changing up the weaponry of the game a little bit. But we don't know that for certain yet. It's all just speculation. For now, the smithing table looks kind of pretty and will give you a weaponsmith, or a toolsmith villager, if you end up placing one of those near an unemployed villager. Let's go back to the recipes we have not yet explored, because I can probably find a fletching table in here somewhere. Whereabouts would we find that? Perhaps I have to get some other ingredients for that. Okay. This one actually makes me quite happy because it's using an item I normally really dislike having around, and that is flint. I don't like having flint much once I've got a skeleton spawner available to me. There we go, the recipe just unlocked. I don't like having flint around when I've got a skeleton spawner already because it tends to just pile up and I have no use for it. I have tons of arrows by that point already. I don't need to make that much flint and steel. The crafting recipe for this is just the same as the smithing table. You basically make a crafting table and add 2 flint over the top. Interestingly, you can also do the same recipe by making a crafting table and just adding an arrow to it, which I'm not going to do right now because I want to use this flint. So here we go. A fletching table. We'll put this over here with the smithing table. Does nothing right now except make fletchers. It looks kind of pretty though, so potentially you could use that in builds here and there. It looks quite similar in texture to the birch log, so yeah, might be worth doing something with that, but for now, useless as far as functions go. Next up, I'm going to make myself a couple of fences if I can, because our next block requires those in its crafting recipe. This is a composter, and these present a rather interesting function to the player. Composters can actually be used to make bone meal if you provide them with compostable resources. Let's take, for example, these apples and these wheat seeds that I've got here. Each of these has a chance to fill up the composter with a layer of compost. Notice I'm putting a bunch of apples in here and it doesn't fill up every single time. And eventually it turns into this, which is compost. Now, compost in Minecraft is bone meal. And that's the fertilizer that you'll use to grow crops or potentially grass outside of anywhere you happen to be. And this allows you the opportunity to turn some of your unused resources, like all of those wheat seeds you've probably got, into compost. Now you'll notice that the chances of it creating bone meal, the chances of it actually filling up the composter get a little bit lower with the lower quality ingredients. So for example, using a bunch of seeds on this thing, it's not going to fill up quite as fast as it did with the apples. You can compost things like cake and potatoes and stuff like that, and that's going to be where a lot of the good stuff comes in. It is not really a great return on your investment to rely on this as a way of farming bone meal, especially when we have skeleton spawners in the game. But perhaps if you're playing on peaceful mode and you don't want to rely on attacking skeletons to get yourself a bunch of bone meal, this might be a good alternative. It can also be automated and has some pretty interesting ramifications for redstone contraptions, but that is something we will have to get into a lot further down the line. For now, this is the preferred workstation of farmer villagers, and I think you will actually find farmer villagers using these if they maintain a crop farm. For a while in the pre-releases, you found farmer villagers actually standing inside these things, but yeah, you can actually get into them in a certain way. But for now, I think you'll find that these are kind of neat looking blocks. They almost look like a beehive, so you could imagine hanging them from trees as a beehive. You can get creative with them, or alternatively, you can use them for their preferred function. I'm going to head out to my sugarcane farm and grab myself a little bit of paper for this next one, because that little bit of paper will allow me to craft our next villager workstation, the Cartography Table. Another crafting table with 2 items on top of it, like so, and it has a really great texture comparable to dark oak. In fact, that texture there is like a vertical dark oak plank, so you could potentially use that for siding in a wall of a log cabin or something like that. The functionality of this, though, aside from being the preferred workstation of the cartographer, is really interesting. Cartography tables can be used to clone or zoom out maps in much the same way that you can do that in your existing inventory. So imagine, surrounding a map with a bunch of paper in your 3x3 crafting interface. You can do that now in a cartography table just by adding a map and a piece of paper. You can also lock maps in this using a map and a glass pane, I believe. So it is actually possible, if you make map art in the world, if you go out and fill an area with enough blocks to create an artistic design of some kind on here, you can actually lock that so that even if somebody goes out to that region of the world and destroys it, vandalizes it in some way, the map will still remain the same. They cannot update the map that you've placed on your wall. So the cartography table actually has really interesting ramifications for creative players, folks who want to go out and make map art in the world, which is something that we will be doing an episode about way further down the line because it needs a lot of resources to do, but definitely worth your time and quite an interesting texture right now. We have one final crafting station to make, and that has just popped up in the recipe book here. If we go to our recipes and take a look at the loom, this is a loom. It's 2 string and 2 planks, a very cheap recipe. This is quite a powerful block. Now, previously, I've shown you external tools that can be used to basically draft banner designs, showing all of the different patterns and so forth. Now, with the loom, you get it in the game. I can put a white banner in here and a piece of red dye, and you can see the available patterns in here and preview them like so before you actually create the banner. So it's no longer relying on crafting recipes and your knowledge of those crafting recipes in order to make banner patterns. You can do this all in-game, which I think is a fantastic addition, and it's going to mean that sites like Need Cool Shoes, while it's still a very great way of allowing you to design banners and you can move layers around and stuff like that, is not going to be nearly as necessary as it was before. Now, the third slot here is for patterns, and those are for the items that you can turn into specific banner patterns that are a little bit difficult to obtain. Things like the creeper head that we use to make a creeper head banner pattern, or an enchanted golden apple, for example. And it so happens that I came into possession of an enchanted golden apple thanks to a desert temple I raided not too long ago on a stream. I was very happy to have finally found one of these, and I think it is possible to craft it into a pattern and still keep the enchanted golden apple, but I don't know that for certain. So I want to make sure that that is possible before I go any further with that, before I decide to eat it or convert it into a banner pattern. I need to know that I'm going to be able to do one or the other or both, so I can make sure the priorities are straight. But as far as that goes, that is no longer the only item I need to eat to complete the balanced diet advancement. There are a couple of new additions to the food in the game as well. We'll get to that another time. But for now, of course, the Loom is the preferred workstation of shepherds, so you'll find shepherds gathering around these things, and you'll be able to make unemployed villagers into shepherds as long as a Loom is nearby. So these are all the new additions to the game. These are the new blocks that have been added in Minecraft 1.14 to correspond to the different villager professions. Now, the eagle-eyed and knowledgeable amongst you might realize that there are a couple of villager professions missing from this, and there is good reason for that. Their crafting blocks, their workstations, already exist in the game. Let me grab a couple more iron here, and I'm going to make one of them. Shout out to anybody who knows what this is already. We're going to be placing those iron ingots in like so, and making a cauldron. Cauldrons are now a professional workstation. They are, in fact, the preferred workstation of leatherworkers. And you can imagine with leatherworkers being able to dye things and wash them in a cauldron, that probably makes a fair amount of sense. The other one is, I believe, no longer up here because I moved them all, but luckily I've got one of them up here in the farmhouse, and that's a brewing stand. Brewing stands are now the workstations that correspond to the cleric profession, which makes a great deal of sense when you consider a brewing stand and a splash potion of weakness is how you cure zombies, and considering that clerics already trade in rotten flesh, clerics are not keen on having zombies in the game. Wow, that was a lag spike. Hello! Yeah, remember what I said about performance optimizations earlier? Apparently that also applies to my chicken coop. Moving on, so with the addition of the brewing stand and the cauldron, that is pretty much all of the villager profession blocks covered, and I think that's what we're going to cover for this episode. That's probably where we are going to leave it, because I could talk your ear off about this update. Believe me, there are so many cool things that we're going to explore in future episodes, but for now, I think a look at these new blocks and a taste of what this update has to offer is probably going to do it for today. So thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.